Well, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing and whoever you're lucky enough to be doing it too. I'm Bushka on Blitz, and today we're going to be having a little trip down HESH lane. We're going to be talking about the Scent 7-1, and more to the point, we're going to be talking about what makes it a great tank. And this is something you can apply universally to any tank that has a high penetration number on its high explosive. To give you an example of some of those tanks, the British tanks are predominant with the HESH, obviously high explosive squash head, the 7-1, the FV4202, the HE on the FV215B, and the Conqueror is in fact HESH as well. It's a higher penetration HE than you would normally get on a heavy tank. The 215B, 183, the Death Star, the most notorious with the 1400 odd damage HESH rolls you can get on that quite confidently. The RU251 is another tank that has a high explosive squash head round. It's got a much higher pen than normal on its HE. But what it doesn't really have is what the 7-1 has. Now, the average roll on a 7-1's APCR is 350. Now that's pretty bloody good. It's but it's certainly the same as you've got on an E50M and an E50 and those kind of tanks. Where the 7-1 excels is as you learn to use it correctly and you learn to actually find shots that you can use your high explosive squash head on, which is 220 odd millimeters of penetration. Now there's a couple of things HESH doesn't like. It doesn't like spaced armour at all. And you'll see when you roll poorly on HESH, it's generally not because you hit and bounce, although I have had that happen, which would belie the whole theory that high explosive does splash damage all the time. It's when you hit something like the very edge of a 704 or the side of an IS-8 and it swallows up that damage with the module. You actually do all your damage to the module. There's certain tanks that you can penetrate with HESH, but the key thing is you're looking at that area just above the track. Unless they've got spaced armor, that is an outstanding place to consistently hit. And you'll see how I'm using HESH here to really maximize my damage on this STA1. And where I'm aiming for predominantly is the space just above the tracks on the side of the tank. Or if you're looking at an M46 pattern, premium HESH, which is what we're firing here, which has the much better penetration value, you can pen the body of the tank. Like the Leopard PTA, the Leo 1, the Type 61, the STB 1, these are all tanks where if you hit at the right angle and you get the right area, you can fire HESH quite successfully. You've got to be very good at switching ammunition types. Now I'm using the 7-1 because I think that's probably the best example of a HESH firing tank. The Death Star is fantastic, but it's a very unique tank. Nothing else has that kind of high explosive power at that kind of penetration. The L7A1 is the gun of the Scent 7-1. It's also the same gun. The L7A1 is on the Leopard PTA as well, which again, another fantastic penetration tank. Fantastic accuracy, good aim time, really good penetration numbers, which I think is key. And when you get used to it, it can really turn the tide. And it's got this fantastic damage bump. So you go from a 350 alpha gun to a 440 average alpha gun when you're firing HESH, and you'll roll 500 at times. And if you learn to switch between APCR and whatever high explosive you have loaded up second all the time, you'll find that you'll be able to increase your damage across a whole range of tanks, namely big TDs. The most key beneficiary of these huge damage boosts is big TDs. These are tanks where you always want to be firing high explosive into the rear of American tanks. They have 50 millimeters almost universally, or such low numbers on the back of their heavies and their TDs and such, and their mediums, that you can fire HESH rounds or even high explosive rounds, for instance, in a Jagdpanzer E100 or a T110E3 or a T95 or a T110E4 or a Jag Tiger or any of those kind of tanks. Your high explosive in big guns of 120mm and up tends to be high enough to penetrate the rear of tanks like the American heavies and like the Brit tanks, for instance. The FV215B is soft as butter in areas, and big TDs can penetrate them. KV2s, for instance, have outstanding high explosive rounds. They're a heavy tank, but they've got huge, big, high explosive rounds. And the KV1S can actually be penetrated by the high explosive of the KV2 on its lower glacis and one shot. Now, that's a 960 alpha round. If you don't learn how to swap ammunition types and find the right ammo type for the right armor profile, you're going to be doing yourself a huge disservice. And we've talked about watching the radar this week, which is really, really important. You've got to always be watching that radar. And, you know, we've talked about the science of camping and sniping in big TDs. And I'm doing the same thing. You can see me switch to HESH here, 446 roll straight to the side of an IS-6. Now that's experience knowing that you can pen the side of an IS-6 with premium HESH. Now I do carry standard HESH. That's the HE there. And you use that generally when you're firing into the back of tanks. Your standard HESH is going to be just over 100mm of penetration. And you can use that firing into the back of American tanks. And this is an interesting game, this one too, because they had 4 mediums. We really couldn't contest the hill successfully. So I've gone to the corner, and normally, you can see, I hit him with HESH there and smashed him. Where you want to be firing HESH when you're looking at Russian TDs and Russian tanks that don't have spaced armor on the sides is just the line above the tracks. You can see how much damage you do there. I had him in the side of the turret, but if I had to pick, I would have also fired into the side of the tracks. And obviously we're in all kinds of trouble here. They've pushed down to be very aggressive, and good on them. Played the game the right way, just an unfortunate, and this Leo one is going on like a pork chop. He's an idiot, he doesn't know what he's talking about. We have moved over here to put excellent damage in, and we have succeeded in putting outstanding amounts of damage into these guys over here. But unfortunately, and you can see good gun handling, we catch that very quickly there. Unfortunately, we're now in a whole lot of strife. Again, straight in the side. We didn't need the high explosive there. But this is what makes tanks like the 7-1 such deadly tanks. They've got wonderful penetration numbers on their standard APCR rounds. And yet, if you learn to ammo swap and you learn to utilize high explosive squash head and higher caliber, high explosive rounds, you can do exceptionally well. Now, the IS-6 is on offer, but we want the IS-3 Defender. There he is. And we get him and pull back. Narrowing it down to 1-on-3, which is Kolobanov territory and doable, but we make a huge, huge error here. And the error I make is, after being so patient and using the gun and absolutely smacking people, I don't reset camo. I panic and come out too early. Now, I don't panic on this shot. I wait until I get a good one and then swing the back around. He misses, leaves me an open shot again. This is a huge error. 59, 50, 60, 61. I'm still spotted. I'm still on the radar, and I get hit from both sides. 2 camping tanks left, a T-44 and a 54. I had binoculars. This is a real big error. After having a really solid game, that is a monumental mistake. And I go under his lower glacis there to get the HESH shot in. So we get 440 roll. But we miss a couple of sitters here. You can see that. That is just a mystery. I'm trying to hit, but he's not going to give me the right angle. So we've missed one, and we're going to bounce a shot here. Would have been a very, very tough ask to take out the T54 as well as the 44, but I thought we were a good chance if I hadn't of forgotten to reset my camo. And that just goes to show pressure's a great thing in this game. That cap put pressure on me. I panicked. I assumed he wasn't going to be in there, or that the 44 was in there with him. Nearly 6,000 damage. So you can see the damage boost you get from high explosive squash head and from using high explosive rounds that have good penetration numbers. Now, it wouldn't be a video about high explosive squash head and high explosive rounds with good penetration numbers without my old mate, the Death Star 215B183. Now, I solo this tank an awful lot. And I do that because just massive big alpha is fun. And ever since they buffed the gun handling on it, this tank can just simply outlay enormous amounts of DPM. And you can see me, normal round there, AP, all well and good. And if you want to learn how to switch, the Cent 7-1 is the place to go. But once you've been driving the 7-1 for a long time and you get used to driving the 7-1, you can absolutely massacre in the 215B183. The big key with the 183 is you never, ever, ever come out in this tank without a round in the pipe and a clear target. You don't just fish, you don't just sit there fishing. And you can see we're going to switch to high explosive squash head and deliver a full measure of devotion to that poor Cent 7-1. Now, we're moving down and getting into it because we've run out of targets. And that's something that we always talk about here at bushkaonblitz.com or the YouTube channel. Anyway, if you don't have a target and you're in a camping tank and you're just sitting there doing nothing, you're leaving your team a gun down. So I couldn't see a target. I'm moving and looking to put shots in now around the cap area. Now we've switched back to high explosive squash head. We're going to actually switch out of that for this shot on the E100. Now the reason being that the E100 obviously has a whole lot of armor and a difficult armor profile to penetrate. And you can see us here just looking for that shot on that 183. Not getting it, not getting it. But we've got to go through some stuff underneath the E100. Now, high explosive squash head there, you don't want to have it hitting fences or walls or anything like that because it is high explosive as a primary ammo type and it will get stopped, like heat will get stopped by any form of interference and it won't penetrate debris. So bear that in mind. Now we're going to switch to high explosive squash head again for the back of the E100's turret. Obviously a big damage roll there, over 1,000 hit points again. Switch to high explosive squash head for the mouse just in case he turns, but he's not going to, so we have one in the pipe. We're going to go out and we're going to take all these hit points basically straight through with 310mm of pen. Average alpha of 1,000 on your APCR, on your AP. But really, I mean, this is the big daddy of swapping over to high explosive. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to learn to do this. And you're going to see the damage rolls on this. I mean, this tank just absolutely drops 5k games like they're going out of fashion. I think this one, in fact, is closer to 7k than 5 this time out. Yeah, there you go, 6577. Great tank for illustrating the point, and a wonderful tank overall if you do enjoy ammo swapping. Learn to ammo swap, guys. It will maximize your damage. There's lots of tanks out there that can't utilize this, like low caliber, high rate of fire guns like the Comet and such. But if you learn how to swap ammo types out, you learn what is an easy tank to pen, the sides of tanks that don't have spaced armor, like German tanks, some of your Russian mediums and the like, they're primary targets all the time. The E50s, the Tiger 2s, the E75s, turrets and sides that are flat, that's where you want to be hitting HESH, hard, fast, often, and early. This is a patron-sponsored post. For those of you who haven't thought about sponsoring the channel, I'd really appreciate it. As long as I can show the girl that I'm returning enough of an income from the channel and Patreon and such to, you know, show that it's worth doing, I'll keep being able to pump out a video every day for a long time, hopefully. And I hope you enjoy it. And I hope you like the content. And if you don't, well, you wouldn't be here. I'm Bushka on Blitz team. Thank you so much for being passionate about the game that I'm passionate about. Look after yourself, look after your families, and stay safe on the battlefield.